Okay, let's plow ahead, guys, into our next session here on UCaaS. I want to talk for the next few minutes about video and collaboration and how those technologies play into an overall UCaaS deployment. You see, one of the big promises of UCaaS, right, is that we're able to take every type of communication method and kind of knit it together into one ubiquitous experience. Well, of all the ways we communicate, nothing is more intimate when it comes to unified communications than video. The idea that we could be across oceans, but if I can see you and you can see me and we can have a one-on-one interaction, that one-on-one conversation, nothing's better than that, right? Other than, of course, being in the same room together, and that's not always practical. So how do I incorporate video conferencing, as you may know it, kind of those room-based video conferencing systems, and even things like desktop video or one-to-one video capabilities? How do I incorporate that into overall UCaaS strategy? And then what is kind of the role that collaboration plays with that? And if I can see you and you can see me, but we can also see what each other is working on in a spreadsheet or a Word doc, a PowerPoint presentation, all at the same time, how does that dramatically improve the productivity of our interaction? Let's talk first about the video piece. So when we talk about video, there are a number of different components that come into play, right? There is the room system, and that's where you've got a large TV on a wall. It has a camera hooked up to it, and that is connecting to other room systems. So I have an office in San Francisco, and I have an office in Washington, D.C., and my video room can talk to that video room, and we can see the two rooms of people and share that kind of a meeting. Well, the other, though, is I want to be able to connect from that room system to a remote user that is at a computer, right? And they have a camera on their computer, and they want to be able to interact with that room system. So this is becoming more of a desktop video application, right? It's an application that's running on a laptop or a desktop machine using the onboard camera typically, or maybe even a USB attached camera that would allow them to talk to that room system. Very cool. But what if I also have another user and I simply want to do point-to-point video between two desktops or two laptops? And how do I do that kind of a video communication? Well, there's lots of services that do that, right? We can do that on Skype today. That might be the most commonly used way. Facebook provides that kind of connectivity with FaceTime on Apple computers and laptops and tablets and so forth. You can do it via FaceTime. That's all point-to-point. But what happens when you want to do multi-point? What if I've got a bunch of remote users that need to all connect together? Well, that's when video starts to get a bit more complicated. Let's talk about some of the technical requirements that people deploy today in order to solve that many-to-many kind of connectivity issue with video. So before we dive into how UC addresses this requirement, let's talk about how video is typically deployed in kind of the traditional sense, and so you can bridge from one to the other. If let's say again I have a room system, right? I have a conference room, and I'm going to deploy a large TV or multiple TVs. In that conference room, I'm going to have not just a camera, but I'm going to have equipment deployed that basically is a video codec. We talked about the idea of a codec, right? A coder and decoder. That's what a codec is, and it basically translates that language that we talked about, right? So it allows for kind of a proprietary video system to be translated into something that can connect over the PSTN or over the data network to another location. But I have that codec, and if I want to be able to communicate with another room system, that also needs a codec, right? It has that camera. And if I have remote users, then I can use this desktop video application. But the second I get beyond one-to-one, I now need to have a bridge. And a bridge would be a video bridge would be another piece of equipment that would typically sit at the customer's prim at what you'd kind of in the video jargon, what you'd call kind of the head end, right? And that's where each of these guys are connected back to that video bridge, right? And that video bridge knits all three of these locations together. And what you ultimately see on this screen might be, in this case, that might be a split screen where I've got one person here and I've got one person here, these two people, and we're bridging it together. Well, that's great. But now if I have, say, instead of 3, I have 20 or 5 or 10. Let's just take 10 as an example. I've got 10 remote locations that all need to come into this one location. That bridge needs to be big enough to handle the capacity of all of these remote users. What also needs to be big enough is this, the connectivity coming into the building, right? So most traditional video conferencing units from just not even that many years ago would use PRIs. We talked about PRIs in our telco certification, right, guys? Here, they would use PRIs to connect these offices together, and a PRI that would connect all those channels together for this location, for that location, for that location. I now need to make sure I have enough PRI connectivity coming into this building to handle the largest kind of video bridging conference call that I need. Not super practical. Well, the next generation of video bridges that came out would take those PRIs and turn it into IP. And so the drawing would look a little bit differently, right? The drawing would come in like this, and it would be going into an IP network, each of these guys having connectivity, and this location having one big fat pipe. And so that's cool, cheaper than PRIs, a little more dynamic than PRIs, but still the bridging is done here. So if I have to have all that traffic traverse that big fat IP connection to then be able to connect all these remote users, I have to size this appropriately. What's the biggest number, the largest number of remote users that I need to bridge together for this video call, right? Well, the next generation beyond that is really where we're at today. Because what's now become available are video services, kind of think of it as video as a service, which takes the function of the codec, the function of the bridge, right? That's the bridge, and moves all that to the cloud. And so now I can centralize the bridging, the compression, the translation of all that signal in the cloud and just have video endpoints at the edge. Let's redraw that picture so you understand how that works. Okay, so now in a cloud, right? A service provider's cloud that has made the investment not just in their soft switch, we've talked a bunch about that, media gateways and session border controllers and so forth, but they may have also deployed a conference bridge, a video conference bridge. And now what I'm able to do is over an IP connection to a bunch of different locations. I might have a room system here, right? I might have a desktop application running over here. I might have a tablet or even a smartphone here that's connecting, and I might have another room system here, right? All of that dialing in essence, just like you'd make a phone call, using, get this, SIP, SIP, Session Initiation Protocol, right? The same kind of protocol that we use in our IP telephony communications today in most cases. All that coming into a bridge that knits all that together and then streams out to all these individual users the images of everybody else. Really, really cool stuff. Kind of, a little bit kind of like Jetsons stuff, right? But guys, this is real. This is now. We're doing this today, and you can help solve your customers' problems using this kind of technology right away. Let's next, in our bits and bytes section, go into a little bit more detail on the technical side of how this happens.